Jazz, they just make it up as they go along. I can do that. Do, 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 do. Let's talk about Blue Giant. Hi everyone, it's David Stark from Watch Your Past, and I'm here to talk to you about Blue Giant, which is releasing on Blu-ray and digital on April 30th, 2024. It already had a theatrical run earlier, but now it's coming to digital and Blu-ray from our friends at G-Kids. You can check it out in the comfort of your own home. It is from director Yuzuru Tachikawa, who did a lot of great anime, including Mob Psycho 100, DECA-DENCE, and also one of my favorite anime series that never gets the love that it deserves, Death Parade. So I was very excited to see this movie, and let me tell you, my hot take is I definitely think you should watch it. It is a fantastic, fantastic film. It's an entertaining, fun, and powerful anime about pursuing your dreams and stopping at nothing to achieve them. It has a great story with beautiful animation, and as you'd expect in a jazz movie, wonderful, wonderful music. I thoroughly loved it. I thought it was fantastic, and I definitely think you should check it out. So all that being said, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about the film, a few things I liked, a few things I didn't like, and then really quickly go into the ending. So as you can imagine, there will be spoilers in the ending section. If you don't know what happens in this movie, and you might not, there are some big surprises in this film. I would turn it off when I get to the ending section, but before that though, I'll keep it vague, I'll keep it spoiler free. I'll let you know when I get to the spoilers. So in Blue Giant, you have Dai Miyamoto, who has come to Tokyo to play the sax and become the greatest jazz musician of all time. I'm sure you've probably heard that story. It probably doesn't end well for most people, but Dai is determined and he is quite talented. And as he pursues his dream, he meets up with some other like-minded musicians and starts to try to make his dream a reality. So will this inexperienced but passionate jazz saxophonist be able to become the best in the world? And also, what is a Blue Giant? Well, you have to watch the movie to find out. So, well, that being said, things I liked about this film. The first, I love the animation. It has a really nice mix of like hand-drawn look for the characters and then beautiful backgrounds. It is not hand drawn. It is definitely some sort of CG type, and definitely some sort of computer aided animation. You can definitely see that when some of the characters are moving, especially when they're playing jazz and Dai is moving with the music. But it has a nice like hand drawn look for the characters and then like a very beautiful kind of like I don't know, more artistic look for the backgrounds. It is just a striking anime. It looks really, really great. Definitely check it out on Blu-ray or whatever the highest quality kind of service you can get. The second thing I love the music. It's a jazz movie. We hope the music is good, and this definitely has some really great music. But I also like kind of, I don't know, the subtlety in the music. This might just be, me projecting, but it definitely sounded like Dai was a little bit more raw, still talented, but more kind of like raw at the start than kind of towards the end. It felt like his music progressed and got better as the film progressed. So I thought it was a really nice touch. Is that saxophone definitely sounded different from the start to the end, and I really liked how that progression happened. And also, this is just filled with fantastic jazz music. If you like jazz music, then you will like this movie. The third thing I loved the storytelling. It has an interesting way to tell the story. It's part like a main story, but then part like flashbacks of backstory during the music. The music kind of unlocks flashbacks of like things that happened to these characters while it's going on. And also it has like, I don't know, a documentary kind of feel to it at times with like interviews from people. So it kind of cuts all of that together to tell this like interesting story and kind of gives you some different perspectives along the way. The fourth thing I loved the passion. It has a really great way to represent the jazz performances. It's got like colors and electricity and this like classic anime tropes in it. It is a really interesting way to do it. I loved how like, when characters hit their notes, like the background will change different colors, like electricity sometimes like pops out of them. It definitely has a very anime way of showcasing a great performance, and I'm all about it. I was all for it. It was a fantastic way to tell the story. The fifth thing I love the tragedy. I mean, it's an anime. There's some ups and downs, and there are definitely some moments that these people have to deal with for adversity, and it makes a better story. And the final thing I liked about this film, I like the heart. It's just a wonderful kind of overall movie that feels like it was a labor of love. Just like the musicians it depicts, it feels like this is a film that has a lot of heart and love in it. So all that being said, there really wasn't anything I didn't love about this movie. It was actually fairly long for anime. It was 120 minutes, but I enjoyed everything about it. I enjoyed the entire experience. Maybe I was just in the right headspace. Who knows? But I really, really like this film. So definitely check out Blue Giant when it comes to Blu-ray and digital on April 30th, 2024. So if you do check out the film, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. Oh, and also there is a stinger. It's an interesting stinger at the end of the credits. I'm not going to go into what the stinger is, but if you do watch the movie, watch to the end because there is a little bit of an update as well. So all that being said, I'm going to go into like a plot synopsis and the ending right now. So if you don't know what happens in this movie, and you might not, there are some pretty big surprises and the tragedy that I mentioned in the things I like. If you don't want to know about that, I would turn it off now because there will be spoilers. Blue Giant talks about Dai Miyamoto, who is this very talented but very raw saxophonist who goes to Tokyo to kind of like make his career. He wants to go and practice in Tokyo. Practice. He practices a lot, like under a bridge at night by himself, just kind of like honing his craft, becoming better. And he just is obsessed with jazz. He loves jazz. It seems like I wasn't 100% sure. I'm sure the manga has more information, but it seems like his father gave him a saxophone as a gift. I think he really wanted to play the saxophone. He saw a jazz performance and loved the saxophone. And then it seems like maybe his father died shortly after that. So it seems like he is maybe kind of like pursuing this because maybe it was a relation to his father. Maybe it was just something that he was passionate about. I'm not 100% sure. You don't really get all that information. It comes in, like I mentioned, when he's playing, you get some backstory. And so you just get some flashes here and there. But what we do know is that Dai loves jazz and he wants to go to Tokyo to play. He's kind of outgrown his hometown of Sendai. So all the other thing that you kind of find out is that Dai is kind of self-trained. He apparently has been playing for, I think, 3 years. I think 2.5 of those years were just him playing, practicing by himself. And he's insanely passionate about it. He like practices outside in the snow at night. So he definitely is consistent and he plays until his like lips are bleeding. But he's kind of raw and untrained. He got about 6 months of training when someone I think saw him playing at night and recognized his talent and like gave him some lessons. But that's everything. That's it. That's all of his experience. And I think you can see that in the movie itself, like in the way he plays at the start of the movie, it feels very raw. I mean, it's clearly talented. He definitely has like a nice sound and definitely has some passion, but it doesn't sound as refined as later on after he's had some time to practice and hone his skills. So I love that also about the movie. This might just be me projecting. I don't know, but it definitely sounded like that to me. Now, when Dai goes to Tokyo, he meets up with his friend Tamada, who is who's a friend from Sendai, and Dai kind of crashes on his place. He goes there unannounced, and Tamada's like, "You should have called." And he's like, "Well, you probably would have said no." And he's like, "Okay, fair." So Dai starts staying with Tamada and tries to kind of get a job and also try to like slowly grow his jazz ability. He early on finds like a small jazz club in Tokyo where he makes friends with the owner and she recognizes his like ability, his like passion for jazz because he identifies a song that she plays and then like uh analogizes it to the weather outside. It was like a rainy day and the song was like perfectly suited for it. And she like instantly recognized how much he loved jazz. So she sent him to a live jazz performance. And when he gets there, he sees a band performing that are really good. He hones in on the keyboardist, Yukinori, who is just a very talented artist. He is skilled. He's been playing for 14 years. He definitely has all of the ability, but he is a little bit different from Dai is like pure passion and talent. Yukinori is like more kind of technique and precision. And I did love that. I love the way that these two kind of interacted. Dai is, I guess, more like the yang, and Yukinori is more the yin. And together, they make some really wonderful music. So, early on, Yukinori asks Dai to like perform for him to see if he actually wants to be in a band with him. And this is when you hear Dai kind of play for one of the first times, and you can tell there's a lot of talent, and Yukinori's kind of blown away by it. So they decide to become a band, but they need one more person. They need someone to drum. And just randomly, Dai is practicing outside under a bridge. His friend Tamada shows up, brings him some food, and Dai's like, "Hey, can you like help keep beat?" And he has him just like hit a can with a stick to like just keep a tempo. And Dai is practicing, and Tamada, I think, likes this. He likes playing like this, and Dai recognizes that maybe this is something that he could do. So after this, the last member of their band is there. It is Tamada. He starts learning drums. He has not been playing very long, but he progresses a lot in that time. And it's kind of a constant thing with them where like Yukinori will like tell Tamada how many mistakes he made. And Tamada is not confident, but he's trying really hard. He's like starting to practice. He actually drops out of school essentially to like practice being a drummer. And during this, you kind of like get one of those behind the music type scenes where it's Tamada older, talking about like how much he loved drumming and how much fun it was and how he gets to tell his friends that he got to speak to play with the great Dai Miyamoto, which I thought was interesting. Like on the one hand, it tells you that Tamada is no longer part of the band, which it's not really a big like that's kind of a theme of the film is like jazz artists like use who they are around them and then like go off to other bands. But it also shows you that like Dai became successful because he's talking about it with his coworkers, and talking about how he used to play with the great Dai Miyamoto. So it was an interesting little like I don't know appetizer there. Like it gave you some information about what was going to happen, but also you got to see that Tamada was no longer part of the band. Again, it's an interesting storytelling mechanic, and it also kind of like helps to tell it from a few different perspectives. Now, the three of them keep playing. And at first, Tamada's like a temporary member. They're like, you can stay on. We'll see how long you can stay on for. But eventually, he practices. He shows his passion. And just like, Dai is a quick learner, Tamada becomes a quick learner too. I think he's been playing for like 8 months before he finally becomes a real member of the band. He makes less mistakes. He definitely plays with passion. He shows like how much he cares. Like his hands are always bandaged and bloody from practicing. And they finally form their band. And I love the name. They call it Jass. Jass, jazz, but maybe more Japanese. Although I think ja Japanese does have a zoo sound, so it's a play on the word. So they eventually get invited to play at a jazz festival. It's kind of a make or break moment for the band, and they do a really good job. Again, this film has a really fun way of showing like really good performances with different like flashing colors and anime style like energy, things like that. And they do well. And this kind of emboldens Yukinori. He kind of pushes on his contacts to get someone from this club, So Blue, to come listen to them in their next performance. And So Blue is like the premier jazz club in Tokyo. They only take the best of the best. It's been Yukinori's dream ever since he was a kid to play in So Blue. He's only like 19 or he's only like 18, so uh it's been his dream for a while, but he's still young, but he definitely is determined. He wants to play in So Blue before he turns 19. So the So Blue rep comes and there to watch their next performance, and afterwards Yukinori gets a text. He runs over to meet with him and like wants to know like how he did. And the So Blue rep is pretty blunt with him. He said that the drummer was an amateur, but he played with passion, and Dai was had a great powerful sound, but Yukinori wasn't playing well. He didn't play good solos. He played kind of like a boring performance. He kind of played it safe. He didn't go out of his comfort zone. He didn't like show his passion. And so the rep tells him he needs to bare his soul, that he was playing it too safe, which kind of crushes Yukinori because he thought this was his shot. He thought he was gonna get into So Blue. This was the way. And unfortunately, he seems like he kind of like lost his ability. Now, Jass doesn't break up. They keep playing, and eventually an opportunity comes up for Yukinori. And Yukinori like vows to like fix this. Dai is actually very mean to him. He's like blunt, essentially. Like, the way that Yukinori would be with Dai is with Yukinori. He tells him, like he was right. You don't play with passion. You don't take risks. Like Dai is all about solos and like bearing your soul and like showing and like just kind of like impromptu playing. And Yukinori is not like that. And Dai, correctly criticizes him, maybe harshly, but correctly criticizes him. Now, it's not the end for them. Yukinori eventually gets an opportunity when a new band is playing at So Blue and they lose their pianist. Their pianist gets sick, and the So Blue rep thinks maybe Yukinori could come in. The band Jass had been like practicing and performing, and there was this concern in like the jazz circles that like who would be the next person to step up and take over the mantle of jazz. Like a lot of the jazz fans are older, a lot of the bands are older, and they needed to kind of bring in the next generation. And I think the So Blue rep saw Jass as maybe one of those opportunities, and he saw Yukinori as maybe someone who could help bridge that. So he brings in Yukinori. Yukinori kills his performance. It's fantastic. And I also love this as well because he's playing at So Blue. He's playing in front of all these people, and Dai and Tamada are there, and they are just 100% supportive of him. They're not jealous. They're not, saying they could do better. They're just happy that he's out there, happy that he's bearing his soul, happy that he's playing. So this lets them get a performance at So Blue. The So Blue rep, liked the other two, and now that he's seen Yukinori in this like newer, passionate style, gets them a performance. They have 4 months of practice, they get ready, they do it. The performance is in 2 days, and the night before the performance, Yukinori gets hit by a truck. He works as a part-time job, as arubaito. Probably actually it's a full-time job. in, as like a construction person kind of directing traffic. So he like is the person with the lighted cones directing people to go here and there. And someone apparently fell asleep at the wheel. Yukinori was a little bit distracted, thinking about the So Blue performance. He didn't notice that the car wasn't slowing down. The driver fell asleep and it slammed into him. Now, he survives, but his hand is messed up. His hand is like broken and twisted. So it's terrible. Like he's finally about to play in front of everyone in Jass with his friends, with his like band, and he gets his arm broken. He gets his like his dreams crushed. But Jass doesn't stop. Like it's only a couple days before the performance. Dai and Tamada decide to go on and play it themselves, and they do a really good job. They do a fantastic job. They play with passion. Tamada finally does like a drum solo, which is fun to see. Like he was a little hesitant at first, but then he kind of like lets it go. And so it's a little bit awkward when he first starts, but he kills it. Dai clearly kills it. They do a fantastic performance, a really wonderful performance. And then at the end, we see that Yukinori was there. He shows up at least at the end. I think he might have been there for some of it, but as Dai and Tamada are leaving the stage and going to the back, we see Yukinori. And that was a nice scene because like Yukinori went out to support them. And then he says that he showed up for the encore so they could play, but also like recognizing this is probably their last performance. And this upsets Tamada, but Yukinori basically is like, Dai has outgrown us. Dai has to like move on. He's too talented to like stay here with us. And so it's a bittersweet moment, but it is a beautiful moment because they all go back out on stage. They play one last song. I think it's the song, the first song that they played at the very start, the like first song they wrote together. They play that. They all kill it. Even Yukinori with one hand plays a wonderful solo. That is kind of the end of the movie. And also as the movie ends, we kind of know we see why it's called Blue Giant. Someone, I think it's the teacher that taught Dai earlier on. He says that his friends called someone who was great at jazz a blue giant, which is also kind of a star that goes so hot it goes from red to blue. And so, and he says that that performance at So Blue was very blue. So that's why it's called Blue Giant. I guess the band itself, but probably Dai specifically, has become so strong a performer, so hot that he turned into a Blue Giant, and now he has to kind of like move on from this band to do bigger and better things. So that is Blue Giant. And like I said, there is a stinger after all the credits. There is a stinger. We get a little bit more information. We see a beautiful kind of like mountain area. We see Yukinori continuing to practice. He's playing piano with one hand. He still has a messed up hand, but he's playing piano and writing. He's still kind of writing some music. And Dai calls him from the airport and, talks about how much he loved his piano playing. And Yukinori, asks like, essentially says like you're going to Munich, which shows that Dai is like moving on to the next scene to kind of like learn more and play more. And we see Dai at the airport with his luggage. He's getting on a plane to Munich, and right before he gets on, he looks up, he sees the sign for Munich, and he says, "Okay, let's jazz." And that's the movie. Dai is going to move on. Yukinori is still playing, still composing, but he's recovering, so he can't join Dai. And as we saw, Tamada didn't stay. I mean, I assume he still plays music, but he didn't stay with Jass. He ended up having another career. And so that is Blue Giant. Like I said, I really liked it. I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was a lot of fun. It had a lot of beautiful animation, beautiful music, and just a really interesting story. So definitely check it out. If you haven't seen it already, check it out when it comes to Blu-ray and digital on April 30th, 2024. If you do watch it, let me know what you thought. Let me know what you liked and didn't like. I would love to hear it. And thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you. Oh, and if you're wondering why I wore like a collared shirt, that was basically what Dai played on stage. He would just wear like jeans and a collared shirt. So that's what I wore, and then homage to that film. All that being said, I'm going to tell you yeah. So, like I said, Blue Giant talks about Dai Miyamoto outgrown his current Sendan?